Start early.
Start early.
Hello, everybody. We are starting early tonight because our wonderful guest, Jesse Elder, is on the road, and I want to make sure he's not held up for too long. But look, Jesse is such an amazing guy. Y'all are going to have to go check out more about him after the show. But he is a professional MMA fighter. Well, I don't know if you're still doing it, but professional MMA fighter, built a gym, trains people who run gyms, entrepreneur coach. What else, Jesse? What am I leaving out of there?
You live long enough, Lisa, and you end up doing a bunch of cool shit. So
That's
there's
right.
those have all been chapters in the journey.
Yeah.
Right now, my clientele is almost exclusively entrepreneurs who are growing really fast. They've reached the $1 million mark, and so now they're just like, okay, let's keep scaling past this without going out of my mind.
Yeah.
But we also have a lot of people who are um, the sort of code word that evolved in a lot of my trainings was personal development refugees. People
Yeah.
that went to a bunch of seminars and they're like, this is cool, but something's missing. And so we've really just the people that I have an opportunity to work with are people who just want to live their own damn life. Like they
Yeah.
don't need a bunch of bells and whistles. They don't need a bunch of complicated frameworks. They don't need something that takes you 12 years to complete. Like
Mhm.
just stop doing all the crap that you learned when you were a kid, that somebody else tried to control you. Just stop it. Tune into your heart. What are you here for? Why were you born? If you're not sure, figure it out. Doesn't take long. Just listen with intent. You'll figure your purpose. You'll get an epic vision that compels you. Sometimes it scares you a little bit. Sometimes it means that you got to leave some stuff behind, but that just makes room for what's next. And so every day I get to see people leaning into their dream, and it's pretty awesome.
It gives me chill bumps. And I follow you on Instagram and I watch your lives and stuff. So I see other people commenting and I know that the effect that you have on people's lives. And it's amazing. But yeah, so many of us, we are so busy trying to copy what other people are doing or check the boxes off. I think especially now with social media and everything, we're like, we got to have our funnel and we got to be on this platform. We got to do this, got to do that. But I want to rewind a bit. Will you tell them a bit about your background, like how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, it's been a very accidental sort of path. I certainly never set out to be this coach and consultant and speaker and author and all this other stuff. That wasn't my goal. I started out when I was a kid. I was doing martial arts, and I just wanted to learn my moves, and then
Hmm.
that led to competing a little bit, and then I was helping to teach the classes. I was like one of those karate kids, 14, 15 years old, and I was also homeschooled, so I had a lot of time and a lot of flexibility and a lot of freedom to think. And that's something that I observe that even a lot of adults now have a hard time with. They're so used to cramming their day
Yeah.
full of stuff, pretending to be busy. I'm like, when's the last time you just like took a day for yourself? And
Hmm.
I can't tell you. It's like,
Yeah, they think they have to
you
have
gotta
this
stay
schedule.
busy.
Right.
Yeah. So as a kid, I was never busy. I had ridiculous amounts of free time to read books, pursue whatever my interests were, and just huge credit to my parents for creating the space for that to happen. So I was always following my own interest. Never sat behind a desk, never took a test, never got a grade. I just always kind of would live an actual life.
Hmm.
And so by the time I was 17, I knew this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to teach martial arts. And so I moved out and got my own place, and then
Wow.
was teaching, and it was my life. And then very fortunately, I was 19 years old. I remember I was dating this woman, a young woman. I was very like, oh, this was like my first crush. I was a very late bloomer, 19 years old. I was like, here we go. And
Oh,
it was a terrible, totally awkward. So we're at this little house party, and there was a guy there who's like staring at me, like shooting daggers at me from his eyes. And so I asked her, I'm like, what's this guy's deal? She's like, oh, well, it's kind of my boyfriend.
oh
I'm
no.
like, what? So now I'm like heartbroken,
Yeah.
angry, but also like, oh shit, this guy wants to kick my ass. So I was like, I'm gonna leave. So I'm walking down the driveway for this little house party. Now remember, I was a second-degree black belt in Taekwondo. I'd competed in all these tournaments and won all these trophies and had taught hundreds of classes. So I thought I was pretty good.
Hmm.
Well, lo and behold, I'm walking down the driveway, and this dude jumps on my back like a panther.
Oh
I fall to
no.
the ground, and he starts lighting me up with these just punches. And
Oh,
in that moment, I realized 10 years, from 9 to 19 years old, 10 years of martial arts practice was worthless.
yeah, because it's just the, what do you call the, when you have to
Well,
go through the
there's the forms and the katas
yeah,
and the moves, and
yeah,
there's all of that, and there is a sparring element, no doubt. And
yeah.
I don't mean to throw anybody under the bus here.
No, I know, I got you.
Many of my dear friends are martial artists,
Yeah.
but you have to keep in mind there's martial arts, and then there's fighting.
Right,
And those are
real life.
two totally
Yeah,
different things.
exactly.
And interestingly, for entrepreneurs, many martial arts or many entrepreneurs are like playing at business, but they haven't embraced the fact that they're actually in business. And so they're looking for courses, and they're reading books, and they're just kind of doing the
That's
thing.
such a great analogy, such a great point, because I think people hear that a lot, but I think you given the example of black belt in Taekwondo versus fighting is really, I think, really valuable.
Well, I feel very fortunate to have gotten that experience at 19 years old, where I was a second degree black belt. You ask anybody around me, is Jesse any good? And most people would go, yeah, he's pretty good. And I thought I was pretty good until I got baptized by reality. And
Wow.
the laws of physics doesn't care if you're a second degree black belt. You're going to go to the ground if somebody jumps on you. So luckily, I ended up, kind of getting myself disentangled. I managed to get one kick off, and it landed, and the guy dropped, and I took off. But my world was rocked because I realized, I've been for 10 years operating under this illusion that if
Yeah.
I could just learn the right kick, the right technique, all these complicated moves, which are, again, these are beautiful art forms,
Hmm.
but they're not designed truly for real life. And it's not the fault of the people teaching it. Most of them have never chosen to test themselves in a real life environment. They've just kind of learned from their instructors.
Hmm.
So, you got a bunch of students who don't know any better. So they're looking at you going, wow, you're awesome. And you have those students saying you're awesome. And you're like, maybe I'm awesome. And then you stop questioning, and you never enter the real field of reality. So my whole worldview is shattered. I wasn't angry at my instructors, but I felt very let down just by life. I was like, man, this doesn't work. So I began training in all sorts of different things. I started training jujitsu and really got to the point where I was confident enough to enter into these awful, illegal underground bar fights.
Hmm.
And I was a bouncer. I was, making whatever, a couple bucks an hour. But I was teaching during the day, teaching my martial arts classes. But these fights started at the club that I was bouncing at. And Lisa, I knew that if I didn't enter and test myself,
Yeah.
that I would have to quit teaching because I would be totally out of integrity,
Uh-huh.
So I entered. Long story short, I won 9 fights. I lost 2.
Wow.
And the best part about that, though, is it really taught me the difference between theory and reality. And then
Hmm.
when you get in the ring, whether in martial arts or in business, nobody cares how hard you trained. Nobody cares how much time you put into it. Nobody cares how many years experience you have. Only thing that matters is, did you accomplish your goal?
Yeah.
And I don't mean to use such a combative metaphor of fighting, but there is a reality to it that is unignorable. And so for
Hmm.
an entrepreneur who has a vision, let's say, of where they want their business to be, but they're not getting there,
Yeah.
it's because they're still most likely, and I can't say this with full confidence without having done a proper deep dive and a diagnosis of where somebody's at, but most likely they've got a little story in their mind that if I just work at it long enough, if
Yeah.
I just work hard enough, then I'll be successful. That's not how real life works. When you go to the bank and or you get your let's say merchant statement from PayPal or Samcard, or, whoever you're doing payments with, they don't look at the number and then email you and say, hey, we noticed that you made more money this month. We just want to make sure you worked really hard for it.
Yeah.
So, like, I just realized that real life doesn't care.
Yeah.
Real life, it doesn't matter how hard you're working. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. And honestly, and this sounds weird to say, it doesn't matter if you're a good person or not. I'm not saying don't be a good person,
Right.
but money don't care. And
And
so,
I have found a lot of times it doesn't even matter how, I don't want to, I don't, I was going to say it doesn't matter how good you are. It does matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how good you look, is really what it, and the fight.
I'm proof of that, Lisa.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm talking about the fighting.
Yeah,
That's the
it's
perfect.
not how pretty. It's not how pretty you are. It's how
It's
effective
like
are you.
all that mattered was whether you won the fight. It didn't
Yep.
matter whether you did your chop in a certain way or your
Right.
kick or whatever.
Right. Well, and that's one of the things because I work with a lot of coaches and a lot of consultants and speakers and people who are, similar to you. They've got a great podcast. And so they've got this message, but then at the same time, they're like, okay, when are the sales going to come in?
Yeah.
And so, we get seduced into this idea that, well, it takes 1,000 podcasts, or it takes, you have to, get to 10 billion people following you on Twitter or whatever. And it's almost, I don't mean this to be mean, but it's almost cute and endearing when I see the look on somebody's face after they go through like a 30-minute training on how to make an offer at 4 or 5 times the dollar amount that they made it yesterday, and they make the offer and they get paid by somebody who's been following them for months or years, who never gave them any money. And all of a sudden, with a few differently crafted words of a well-intentioned offer, next thing you know, they're making money, like more money in a weekend than they made in the last 3 months. And you can see them trying to understand, where the hell was this all the time that I was struggling?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very fortunate to come from a background where only results matter. And I'm not saying that money is the result that matters. Frankly, I don't really care that much about money. What I care about is seeing the result in the lives of my clients once they invest with me, and then the results in the lives of their clients once their clients invest with them. And then I care what I can do with the money out in the world. Can I build my farm? Can I hire more farmers who are building this farm with me? I don't care about the money by itself, but the results are the only thing that matters. And so, to your point, it doesn't have to be pretty.
Yeah.
It just has to work. And that's the world that I have come to agree.
I love that, Jesse, because so many of us, and I can fall into that myself sometimes, we get so busy doing things that we're not really doing anything. It's like, I told a client the other week, busyness isn't business. BUSY-ness. And a lot of times people they think if they stay busy, if they're doing something, at some point the magic will happen and all of a sudden they'll start making money. But to your point, you have to be intentional about what you're doing.
Right. And
What do
that's, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, and that's the hard part for people. You ask people, what do you want? And most people can't answer that question.
Yeah.
With any degree.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what do you think is like the most common problem that you have seen with clients? Do you think the beginning of the most common problem is all the way back at the beginning, they don't even know what they want? So if you don't know what you want, you can't get it.
Right. I think that's at the heart of the issue. Lack of clarity about what it is that you actually want. And a lot of people say, I want a business. Mm-hmm. No, you don't want a business. What you want is to see change happening in people's lives as a result of your business. And one of those changes is that they are committed to what you're providing for them. They're committed because they put some skin in the game. That's the real value of charging people. It's not that you make a bunch of money. It's that person now is so committed that they're going to apply whatever you give them, whatever you share with them. And then you deserve to keep that money that they gave you. When people are thrilled with the investment that they made in themselves, they tend to give you a lot more because they just want more of that result. So most people don't know what they want. They say, I want a successful coaching business. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Do you want like one client who's paying you like $10 million a year? Or do you want like 1 million clients who are paying you like $10 a year? Like, what do you want? And as soon as you pose that sort of, what is it? Then people start to hem and haw. They're like, well, and that's the root of the problem. And so the thing that I really work with people on is just asking questions to help them develop absolute relentless focus, so they know exactly what it is that they want. They know what they're here for, what their purpose on the planet is. They know what their path is. They know exactly resources that they need to get in order to make it happen. And when you have that kind of clarity, things move fast. You accomplish in a week what took 6 months or 6 years. Now you've got all your time back. Once you're making money and you've got all your time back, now you get to go and live the actual life that you wanted to live. And that's where it's at.
Yeah, I have seen so many people comment on your post on Instagram. So I know for a fact, just watching those people and how they speak about you. Here's Amy. You probably met Amy out in Amy was in Austin. So
Yeah.
she says she thinks it totally applies in the nonprofit world too.
Very much, because ultimately a nonprofit is designed to produce some sort of result in the world, even if that result is to give people a place to put their money and write it off on taxes. Cool. Talk about that to all the people and how much money they're going to save by getting to write this off on their taxes while feeling good about themselves, and they'll give you a lot of money. I ran a nonprofit myself for about 2 years, very, very unintentionally.
Was it a real, not like a
No,
charter nonprofit?
it was my business.
Yeah. I thought that's what you meant. Funny. Well, I think back to what you were saying about people, I think people are so afraid to commit to something like this is what I want, or these are the type of clients, because they're afraid they're going to miss out on something if they, and I'm not talking just niching down, but just even what do I want out of life? They're afraid they're going to limit themselves.
Yeah, and this is very very common. You know, a lot of people will believe that they got to get it right, and they're not going to move forward until they get it right. So they're sitting there for, months and months and months, instead of, you know what? It's like you're riding a bicycle. You get on a bicycle, there's only two components: steering and pedaling. Which one's more important? Pedaling. Because if you're not pedaling, you don't have any momentum and you can't steer. Right. So a lot of people are sitting there and they're not moving, but they're steering, and then they fall over because they have no momentum. And I'm not making fun of anybody. I know what it's like to feel kind of frozen and like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. But usually the answer is to just do something.
Yeah.
Because then after that, you'll be able to look back and go, okay, I didn't like that. I liked that. That worked. That didn't work. Now you've got data. Now you're living in the real world.
Mm-hmm. So when you first start working with someone, you go through an in-depth conversation / questioning, just basically delving into their life, almost like a therapist would, I guess.
There's a very therapeutic element to it. And sometimes people will reach out to me and they're qualified, and we'll end up on the phone. And after a couple of minutes, they're like, wow, like that was what I needed. I'm like, awesome. Like, go do you, because I have way more demand for my services than I can accommodate. And so I'm not worrying, where's the next client going to come from? And if I can, in 5 minutes, have somebody go, wow, that was great. Then I'm like making a karmic deposit out in the universe, and then they got what they needed, and it was easy. But what I find usually happens is the more people start to pay attention to their emotions, and the more they start to feel, to be more conscious about what they're feeling, they tend to realize that who they've been living as and who they really are have kind of gotten to be two different things. The way that they're portraying themselves, you talk about like finding the niche and finding the right audience and all this kind of stuff. Many people turn into something that they think the marketplace wants them to be. This is a big point. This is a really big point. Many people become what they think the marketplace will reward. And then they're wondering why they're not happy. It's because you stopped being yourself. But then on the other hand, we have a whole bunch of people who are just being themselves, being wildly creative and unique and authentic and self-expressed, but they're not useful. Like, they're not actually providing any value to the world. And then they're wondering, well, how come nobody's paying me? It's like, because you're useless. Like, you're beautiful and you're pretty and you're handsome and you've got, all sorts of fancy new words in your title, like your crypto NFT spiritual yoni rubber or something. Like, great, that's awesome. But
Yeah.
how does that benefit your client? And if your client can't answer that, and if you can't answer that, then nobody's going to pay you just to sit around and look cool. So I find that when people can merge the two, when they can find their authentic voice merging into someone's deepest need.
Okay.
What is the need that somebody has in their life? And again, this comes back to clarity. We're just going to do a whole sales training right now. You ask most people, what does your client want? And they'll say things like, let's say a coach, for example. A coach will say, well, my client wants to feel more aligned. I work with a lot of spiritual coaches, and a lot of spiritual coaches will say that, well, my client wants to feel more aligned. Or, my client wants to feel less stressed. Or, I work with some health coaches, and they'll say, well, my client wants to lose weight, or they want to gain muscle. And again, that's not wrong, but it is not the full picture. That's not what people want, is just to lose weight. There's a driving force that is unique to them. And if you know what that is, and you can talk to them about that, then all of a sudden they will do anything. They will pay you whatever you ask if they trust you. If you can prove and demonstrate that you're getting results, that's how you ramp sales up really quickly.
Yeah, like, do you want to lose weight because you want to be hot? Do you want to lose weight because you want to be a model? Do you want to lose weight because you want to be healthier?
Right.
Whatever.
Right. And this is really, really important. What you just said, we'll take those two things, hot and healthy. That'd be a great program name, actually. So if somebody says, no, I just want to be hot, well, then it comes, for the coach in this example, it comes down to how well they're languaging it. And this brings us right back to clarity. You may know what your client wants. Your client wants to look hot. Cool. Then what is your level of clarity as the coach about how you're communicating that? If you just say, do you want to be hot?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll go, oh my God, yes, this is the program I've been waiting for. But if you just hold yourself to a higher standard of communication, you don't get paid for your competence. You get paid for your communication. So if somebody holds themselves to a higher standard of communication, then the coach might say something like, if they find out that their ideal client is single, unhappily single, and the reason why they're not getting on a dating app, or they're not asking their friends to introduce them to people, or they're not going out, is because they don't like the way they feel about their body.
Yeah.
And so in their mind, it's like, well, you know what? If I felt better about my body, not just felt better, but if I looked better, then I'd probably buy some nicer clothes, and then I'd probably go out, and then I'd probably meet somebody, and then I wouldn't be sitting home on Friday night in front of the TV, Netflix, binge watching while stuffing ice cream and drinking a half a bottle of wine.
And getting fatter.
Right. So if you're the coach and you know that they don't just want to lose weight or build muscle, and they don't just want to look hot, they want to stop sitting on the couch and stuffing their face with ice cream and binge watching Netflix while taking up more and more and more of the couch cushion.
Yeah.
Now, again,
lonely.
Right. And lonely. So if we really care about people and we want to help them, then we have to meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
And so, there's nobody that ever bought a coaching program is like, I just don't feel hot. Who can I give $15?
I know, really. And you're talking about the full picture, like a rich,
Are you creating a world? You're creating a world, and then you're inviting them into that world.
Yeah. And because somebody who wants what you just said is totally different than the person who wants to get rid of fat, build muscle, whatever, because they want to compete in fitness events and want to win and things like that. Totally different client, totally different mindset, and totally different service or product or whatever that they need to reach their goals.
Yeah. And most people, and you alluded to this earlier, Lisa, and James has a great point there. You get to the root of the issue, and that is leadership and sales. And so when you know that there's a lot more people out there in the world who need what you have than there are of you, then you can just be very, very specific. It's like with my private clientele, it's pretty simple, because like I don't on a one-on-one level anyway, I don't work with people. I'm just not the right guy for people who are trying to figure out if they should be in business or not. I have a great coaching program for that, but that's not for me as an individual coach. Like I'm not a great coach for somebody who wants to be like the best executive in the world, and win executive of the year in their company. Like, because I'm not a corporate guy. There's a lot of great corporate people. But if somebody is running a business that is doing multiple million in revenue, they've got a healthy bottom line, and they realize that they are about to run out of future. Like they've achieved what it is they originally set out to achieve. And now they've got a whole bunch of opportunities, and they need to make the right opportunity that gives them the best possible yield for a lifetime and for their legacy. Well, I'm the only guy in the world that has a methodology that gives people the highest quality thinking space on the planet so that they can connect in the alpha theta brainwave border, which is a very unique brain pattern, where they can connect with their optimal future self in a visceral felt experience. And they can actually have a conversation with their future self. We call it time piercing. And they can see that version of them, and they can literally live a day through the eyes and mind and heart and body of their optimal future self. And they come out of this process with the exact blueprint that they need. There's not another person on the planet that is able to teach that the way that I do. And I'm not trying to sound like egotistical.
Oh, no, I know. But you are. Yeah, you are. And like I tell the audience, I'm being serious when I say I follow Jesse and I see the people comment and I see the amazing results. So no, I know that you're not just, being all braggy or whatever. And you were talking about the people and about living their future, and so many people, well, we said earlier, a lot of people don't even know what they want, but also people who have gotten to the point and they're very, very successful and they've reached their goals. They might not even know what their next goal is because they've worked so hard to get to this point. And a lot of people can't even imagine having the freedom to design your own life.
Right.
So they can't put themselves mentally in that place. So you help them get in that, you help position them mentally in that place so that they can even start thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly. And when you accomplish a lot of the original goals you set out to accomplish, you tend to get sort of protective. Like you don't want to lose those things. Yeah. But it's a very peaceful process actually, and it's very comforting, and it just feels like a warm blanket around you when you know that you've created success that isn't going to go anywhere. Now you're free to create from a place of beauty and from a place of true desire and inspiration, not from trying to prove anything.
Yeah. Do you think with the people that you've worked with over the years, do you think people who have already achieved a lot are more afraid of change and focus or whatever, or the people who are still striving, or is that like you've never noticed
it's as different as the individual. There are people who have achieved, I've got one particular individual in mind. He's got a 9-figure net worth and feels like he's just getting started.
Yeah.
But from a very happy, healthy place. Like he's like, well, that's cool. We're almost at $1 billion, but man, the things we're going to do next year. And he's like a little kid. So he's operating from a place of joy and play. There's somebody else who his company went to 200 million in revenue in his 4th year in business. Wow. And he's stressed out of his mind. He's like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. And what if I lose it and all of this?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. A lot of people would be like, what if I lose it? Or what if people start thinking about me differently than I'm used to them thinking about me? The ego thing.
Well, the people who are playing at the 9-figure level don't care at all what people think about them. It's people who are in a job that they don't like, and they know that they need to start their own thing or they need to get a better job, but they're held back by these irrational fears. And those are just as relevant. Those are really, really important things. And the only way that you can overcome those is to strengthen yourself from the inside out so that you can look at others from the lens of love, not worrying what they're going to think about you, because what other people think about you and what you think about you are two totally different things. And when you accept yourself fully and you actually love yourself, not like in a narcissistic way, but you were like, yeah, I'm a child of God. I'm I got it going on.
Uh-huh.
And if you can really see that about yourself, then you can also see it in other people, whether they see it in themselves or not. And now you just become this light that you just walk into the room and everybody's like, huh. Some people are like, but that's fine.
But that's so true. You know, the old saying, you can't love somebody else until you love yourself. So it's kind of like that, that when you do accept yourself more and you're more in touch. And that's one of the things that I love about what you do, is that so much of what you do is spiritual, and, however people want to think about it, whether spiritual, whatever is spiritual to the person, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and I love that you involve meditation, fitness, everything, the whole person, everything holistic.
It seems to me that while we're here, we ought to maximize this experience. So, with so many things that are obviously proven to work,
Mhm.
and I can't say that I've always been perfect at it. I'm not perfect at it now. I don't care about perfection. I care about having a great time. And
Yeah.
so if, meditation is useful, then somebody should do it. And if it doesn't work for them, then they shouldn't do it. If journaling helps somebody to clarify their thoughts, to bring their vision to life in their mind every morning so that they're living a day that is aiming toward that vision instead of getting the crap kicked out of them by life, well, then they should go and do that. And if
Yeah.
it doesn't work, then don't do it. It's like
Right.
you can't mess it up. That's the other thing. Your path is so broad that you can never be off of it. So I
Mhm.
just tell people, CTFO, chilled up, out.
E- Well, and the other thing about like meditation doesn't have to be sitting here like,
Mhm.
and so I'm not the type that can do that. Now I can do it like if I'm lying down, going to bed, I'll listen to, but the way I meditate is I mow the grass with a push mower and I'm
Yes.
out there.
Amazing.
I have really steep hills and I totally get in the
Yeah.
zone and I
Total
get
focus.
my best ideas and I love it.
Yep.
Meanwhile, my husband's on the riding mower riding around with beer because he just wants to get it done
Right.
and over with because
Right.
he hates it.
Yep.
And but he'll go out and walk 18 holes of golf by himself,
Yeah.
and that's where he gets into his zen place. And so,
So beautiful.
so that's what you're saying is whatever it is, figure out how it works for you, not labeled how, because most people would be like, mowing the grass is not meditation, because for most
Not
people it's
not for
act.
them.
Yeah, yeah, not for
Yeah.
them. And so, yeah, that you need to find what works for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So when you're working with, so I know that most of the people that you work with are very successful financially, So for regular small business owners who might be making 100,000 to 750 or even up to 1 million, um, what what kind of advice do you give to somebody like that who might not be able to afford to work with you yet, even though if they could, it would be well worth it, but they just don't have the
Hmm.
cash?
Sure.
Um, and it's not the kind of person you have to use your time and allot your time to work with the people that you can help most. So for that
Yeah.
type person, what kind of advice would you give them to improve?
Sure. Well, a couple of things. Number one, I don't see a difference on a human level, heart to heart, soul to soul, between somebody who's making multiple, um, you know, let's say multiple 10 figures, or
Yeah.
even multiple hundreds of millions of dollars. That's reversed, but you get it. If I see that somebody has a sincere desire and a willingness to commit to their growth, I'll do
Mhm.
whatever I can to help that person. The reason why I made my private practice specifically focused towards those people is because one clear decision on their part can affect thousands of employees for the better. It can
Yeah.
affect millions of customers. It can create a better culture. It can create more empathy. It can help them be more connected to the planet. So, that's why, when I charge what I charge, and I know that I'm working with people who are the change makers, but that, to me, that doesn't make them any better. That's just
Yeah.
where I'm called to put my time. And I know you get that. For somebody who is anybody who's a business owner, I have so much respect for the person who's taken radical responsibility to create their own results without relying on entitlement, without relying on pity or sympathy or, just goodwill, and hopefully people are going to support my business. Like this, I think it's the stupidest thing in the world. People are like, support local business. I'm like, I will if they're good. Like,
Yeah,
but if they suck just because they're local, I'm not going to give them my money. That's just rewarding bad behavior.
exactly.
I'm not
Yeah.
giving advice, and I'll be like, hey, I'd love to give you money, but
Hmm.
but I have standards of who I'm going to do business with. So, quit buying from that company in China or whatever it is. It's like,
Yeah.
but anyway, my
I've
um,
had discussions with local businesses, and I don't mean just local to where I live, but local company businesses that serve local communities, and they'll get all mad and they're like, well, people don't support us. I'm like, they are not indebted to support you. Just because you're in business does not mean that you automatically get their business. You've got to
this
earn
is
it.
this is the thing, and I'm glad you brought this up. It is nobody's job to support an entrepreneur. It's the
Hmm.
entrepreneur's job to support people
Yeah.
and to provide support that is relevant, that is useful, that is enjoyable, that is relief producing, to the
Hmm.
extent that a fraction of the energy that comes back in the form of money is worth the entrepreneur's time. So anybody that's bitching and moaning like, oh, people don't support my business, like, you're not supporting them. Why the heck should
Exactly.
somebody
Yeah.
support you? So get better at supporting. If you really care about people, find out what they want and
Yeah.
then give it to them. Those two things. Find out what they want to give it to them. That's my advice for anybody, whether it's somebody who's an entrepreneur that just had a $180 million sale of their business and now they're
Yeah.
trying to figure out what's next, or somebody who's got 1,200 employees and they're trying to reinvent their company culture,
Yeah.
or somebody who is in their job that's uncomfortable. They know that there's a side hustle that's out there, but they're not sure what it is. My answer to everybody is the same. Like,
Yeah.
find out what's in your heart to do in this planet. Find out how that's useful for other people. What problem does it solve? And I remember struggling with that myself, and I used to hate people that would say to find a problem. I was like, I don't know what problem there is, and that's the problem.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, but it's actually, as we kind of wrap, sadly I'm gonna have to get back.
Yeah. You've got to go. I know.
Here's what I do want to leave everybody with, and this timing is perfect. You're actually the first one to hear about this. I've had so many people asking me about doing a coaching program and having something where, like, every week they can check in and ask questions,
Yeah.
but they don't have, let's just say, the funds to do a
Yeah.
one-on-one.
And that's kind of what I was referring to earlier.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
heck,
so
you know us.
we're putting the finishing touches right now on a badass coaching program, which will run over months and months and months. I mean, this is, you can stay as long as you like, leave whenever you want, stay as long as there's value for you. But
Hmm.
I'll be doing a weekly live coaching call, and so I'll be able to answer very specific questions, because then I'll be able to ask the right questions and know where somebody's at. And because we're using I'm calling it a leveraged coaching model, which
Yeah.
basically means, let's say you said, hey, Jesse, how do I monetize my podcast more and really serve people? Well, if you're on this coaching call that we're doing and we've got 300 people that are there, there's going to be like 30 of them that have podcasts. They'll be like, oh, wait, all right, I'm taking notes. And
Yeah.
now we've achieved leverage by you're asking the question and me, now we have this laser coaching session, but now all of a sudden 30 people got helped. In the meantime, everybody was like, you know what, that's a great idea. I can use that in my, in my side hustle that I'm going to start, or that's a great, I'm going to use that to help my son with the business he's building. So it's
Mhm.
going to be a really cool experience. Still working on the name.
I
It
can't
won't be,
wait. I
it's going to be
can't
awesome.
wait to hear the details. It sounds amazing, and I'm a big believer in the more brains in the room, the better, because it
They're the
makes
right brains.
yeah, it makes people think of things that they never would think of on their own. And as you know, a lot of times being an entrepreneur can be so isolating.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited about that. I can't wait to hear the details.
I'm excited to bring it to you. And this has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us, Jesse. Thank you so much. I know that you're traveling, so I'm going to let you go. But before you leave, tell everybody how they can find out more about you.
Yes, definitely don't go to stevesims.com.
Well, yeah, because that's Steve D. Sims, but
That's
well,
right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, Steve is such a good friend. That's, you and I connected at Speakeasy.
Yeah.
But they anybody can go just follow me on social. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Jesse Elder Live on Instagram, or just look up Jesse Elder, JESSEELDER. You can also go to jesseelder.com. Although at the moment of this recording, that website, I honestly don't even know what it looks like. We're going to get it totally retooled.
Your
But
site?
what's that?
Jesse Elder Live site?
Jesse Elder Live on Instagram, or just
Oh.
jesseelder.com. And if anybody is listening to this that thinks they might be a fit for a private client, you can email my second in command, Helen, who just typed in there. What's up, Linkslayer? Helen at jesseelder.com. And Helen will field and qualify all inquiries for.
Hey, Helen, thank you for helping me coordinate all this. Jesse, thank you so much. Sorry, I'm reading the chat. I can't see.
I know. Awesome.
But thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And please let me know when your coaching is ready to be announced, because I want to let people know and I want to do it myself. So
awesome. Would love to have you and your whole community in there.
Thank you. Thanks, and safe travels.
Much love. Thanks, Lisa. Bye, everybody.
Bye. See y'all next week.